Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to another StarCraft 2 replay cast. And this game we have a treat. We actually have Tang with us to watch his own game. So hey Tang.
Hey, how's it going, Buddha? Thank you very much for having me on your show today.
That's great. So we are going into this game of you versus InControl. First thing I want to ask you is, how do you actually feel when you go across against these top players? Do you still get nervous?
Not so much. I mean, like, even if I lost a game to a pro, obviously it wouldn't hurt my ego too much. I really just come into it with the same strategy I always have, and that's win the game. You know, grind the player's front door down until I get the victory, until I get the win, or the loss, for that matter. And in this game, I'm actually going to showcase a build I've been using very frequently against Protoss players that play just a little too greedy. You notice in the metagame nowadays, Protoss are going for Nexus First or Forge Fast Expand on any of the big maps like Antigua Shipyard, Tal'Darim Altar, Shakira's Plateau, all these maps. And if they don't scout, if they're not really careful, they're very susceptible to a one base all-in. So what I'm going to show in this game is what I've actually seen Jelizerg do quite frequently, and that's skip the expansion altogether and just go for that one-base baneling play off the 14 gas, 14 pool. And as we go through the game, I'll explain a little bit of the mechanics behind it, some of the build timings and all that. But for the most part, it's been very successful, and it's a really strong way to get some quick wins off some very greedy Protoss players.
All right, great. So we'll start the replay in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so you say you're doing this so pretty much against all Protoss that are very greedy. So it's not just because this is a pro that you're like, shit, I have to really, really cheese him right now because it's the only way I can win. It's just your regular play, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have thought to myself, this is a pro, the only way I can win is cheese. I'm not, that does come into my head sometimes. But, no, like, even if, you know the player's really good, this is a strategy that has worked for me back in, like, the Diamond and Master Leagues. It has worked for me in the Grandmaster Leagues as well. And it's really exploitive of the current metagame, which is why I like to do it quite a lot. And no, it's not the greatest for practicing your macro and your long-term type play, but you know what, I just want to win games. And you can call it cheese, you can call it whatever you want. I've had games where I've done this opening and still moved into a macro game after, because anytime you're being aggressive, you have to have a follow-through as well. You know, you can't just say, I'm going to all in, if it doesn't work, I'm done, right? Because a lot of games, what you'll notice is you'll end up doing quite a bit of damage, and you'll be back at your base and you won't really know what to do. Yeah. So in that situation, you can throw down 2 expansions. You can still move out of this cheesy type of play, but it does give you a chance to win outright. And we'll notice I am spawning in the top left. InControl is going to be scouting me here pretty early, so I should actually already know where he is based on the timing of this probe, but I'm actually going to send my scout out to the wrong location, it looks like. Right to cross position first, but no big deal. Going to get that gas up pretty quickly. Yeah, we all make mistakes here and there. And it looks like InControl is going to get that Forge up pretty quickly first, and he'll likely be putting down a Nexus very soon. He's going to get this probe at my expansion. Now, when you're doing this Baneling bust against a Forge Fast Expand, you cannot let them scout your expansion. As a Protoss player, you need to scout the expansion at the 4-minute mark, because typically if you're going for that Speedling Expand, you're going to be putting that hatchery down at about 4 minutes. Yeah. So what you really want to do with those Zerglings, those first 4 to 6 Zerglings you get out, is be very active with scouting around for that probe. You can't let it get in.
That was actually going to be my first question. How active are you on preventing scouting and how important it is? So I take it that it's completely crucial, right?
Absolutely. If they scout that, they'll just put down 3-4 more cannons, and then maybe not that much, but yeah, you can't bust. Okay. Or they'll really chrono boost out those sentries, and once they get a sentry or 2, it's really tough.
There's actually a little hole between the forge and the wall that InControl made there.
Yeah, I noticed that with my drone.
Right? He wants to put a zealot there.
I believe so. Okay. I believe he actually walls it in with a pylon pretty soon. I'm not 100% sure.
And what do you do if he actually does scout it? Do you just transition into, you try to throw down your expansion? And
if he got in and saw my Baneling Nest, I would absolutely just cancel the Baneling Nest and get my expansion. Hopefully he overcommits to defense. But one thing I like to point out here is when he puts that pylon down, still bring your drone down there to start picking away at it, because as soon as that pylon dies and he's looking back at that pylon, he's going to see that drone, and he's immediately going to think this player's going for an expansion. But really what you're doing is not going for an expansion at all. And these Zerglings are just going to move across outside of his base to deny another probe from getting out. He actually did sneak a probe out to hide a proxy pylon in the left side of the map, but that's not going to have a chance to come into play. So I'm just streaming in these Zerglings still. Got the Baneling Nest on the way. I like to get it around 20 supply, so it's the 14 gas, 14 pool, 15 Overlord, Queen, Masslings. You don't make
you
it.
actually completely stopped at 15 Harvesters, or 14 in this case, since one of them became the Baneling Nest.
Absolutely. And if I decided, I just don't think I'm going to kill this player, I can always switch out of it. But at this point, once I've used that first Larva Spit for Zerglings, you're almost certainly committed to doing at least 1 or 2 busts.
Okay. Yeah, I actually saw the game versus strategy that I casted this morning, and you actually, I think, busted 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And the last one just blew him out, and it came down to an even trade at the end.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was playing that game, I thought GG. Like, I thought I was done.
I thought it too.
Sometimes, though, you just have to tell yourself, I still have a chance.
Yeah.
And right now, I am going to go in first with the Banelings. I scouted with the Zerglings
Obviously,
quickly.
Target the pylon, and he GG's right out of there. So
Yeah,
nothing
and
do there.
I mean, it seems a little anticlimactic just to have that quick GG and it be done. But this is what a lot of games will come down to: is you'll bust them once, they'll GG, or they'll rage at you and call you a cheesy noob.
You must get so much rage.
Of course I do. Of course I do.
I mean, I personally love it.
You just can't let stuff like that get in your way. You know what I mean? Like, you can't let it bother you.
Yeah,
because
of course.
If you're a cheesy player, if all you do is 6 pool and you make it to Masters or Grand Masters, you deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, you're exploiting a player. And I guess the biggest thing I want to focus on for this tutorial is the timings, getting those Banelings out at the exact right time. As soon as you get those Banelings, you need to take them in at the right spot, so it's very important to scout with those Zerglings, get an idea of the weaknesses in his build, because I noticed that pylon was kind of in a bad spot. I was able to go through that pylon, cancel the power on the cannon, and then it's basically GG. And like I said, this is the situation you'll find a lot of players, Protoss players in, is they'll have 1 or 2 pylons, they'll have 1 or 2 cannons, maybe a Zealot, otherwise they're just making probes and being really greedy.
And I guess the only way the Protoss can actually defend against this is really scouting your expansion, making sure it goes down, right?
There's 2 ways. You can play the Forge Fast Expand very defensively, just blindly by building 2 or 3 cannons. Not really the best way to play, but at the lower levels, when this might be a little more common to see this type of all in, it might be a good idea. Typically, though, you just have to hide a probe somewhere on the map and really, really, really make sure to get in and scout that expansion by the 4-minute mark.
That is actually pretty solid, because even if he plays defensively and doesn't know what's going on, he really has to commit to over-defending his natural.
Exactly, and if he does that, and you go right into an expansion, then he's behind. So that's the problem with doing that. One other thing I'd like to mention is if you click on the Zerg's gas geyser, you can actually see how much gas has been mined. If it's more than 100 when you're in there with your probe, warning bells should already be going off in your mind. Like, why is he getting that extra gas? People typically take the drones out at 100. So if he's up to like 150, and you might be a little suspicious of something like this.
Okay, that's great.
All right.
We are going to load up the BratOK game.
Let's do it.
So I've been watching your games. I think this was the 4th one I watched this morning, and I can't help to have this feeling that every time you play, it's like the Kool-Aid guy just rammed into the wall and said, "Oh yeah!" It's amazing. It's so fun to watch.
Honestly, I struggled for such a long time playing Zerg in 1v1. I played team games for a really long time. I was top 10 global in 2s, 3s, and 4s because you can always 10 pool or roach rush, do these very aggressive strategies. And I've flourished in that kind of play, where you can be hyper-aggressive all game long, don't have to worry about the macro game and losing to cheesy, one-base Terran strategies that are just so hard to defend. And, I was really struggling in 1v1s, though, because the standard game was, get your expansion up, get your fast third base, and play really defensive. And I didn't like that style. I really couldn't execute it that well.
Yeah, we're really... We're really focused on saying that the standard way of playing is really long macro games, and that's what everyone should be doing.
Yep, definitely. But
and if you don't like it, well, you're screwed, because everyone's calling you a cheeser.
Yeah, for the most part, you do get a lot of flame, but you just gotta play your game, not let stuff like that get too deep into your mind. So yeah, I'm just having trouble finding the BratOK game.
Okay, I'm ready. I loaded it up. And this is actually a bust that I've seen 3 times this morning already coming from you.
Sounds about right. Yeah, like I'm almost hesitant to give this build away because it's been working so well for me. Like, it's like giving away my secret to the trade, but honestly, it's so strong. Yeah, any variation of the early Roach Ling push, as long as you have it refined down to the very specifics, it's not an all-in. It's very aggressive. You're almost always guaranteed to do quite a bit of damage, but it is absolutely not an all-in.
I find that very interesting because in one of these games, you don't even try to bust right away because obviously the guy has like 2 tanks and the 2 bunkers. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah, I do remember that game.
And it goes so well after that. Like,
definitely.
We'll come back to it. Did you load it up? So how much do you actually play? I see you online all the time, every time I'm there.
Yeah, pretty much all the time. I mean, like, I play a lot. I'm coaching a lot, too, though. And I used to watch replays and stuff, too, but now I'm unable to do that. Okay, this should work. Okay, yeah, I got it open and ready to go.
Okay, so we will start the game in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so once again, you're going against a very well-known player, BratOK, obviously.
Yeah, BratOK was like 94-10 when we played this game, so like I was not thinking
94-11.
Yeah, exactly. But I was not thinking I had a chance at all. BratOK's so good. I've casted quite a few of his games on my channel. I have a game he played against Lalush. I've seen him play quite a few series at the very high levels, and he's just so strong at this matchup. But one of the things is it's close spawn, so it's not like we really got to test out our skills against one another. It really just comes down to who can bust the best for the most part. But I am going to use my Roachling build, or one of very many Roachling builds I've been working on. People always criticize my ZVT because it seems a little predictable because I do it almost every game. But
well, if it keeps working, why not?
Exactly. It is a really strong push because you can get through almost any wall as long as he's not bunkered up too hard with your roaches. Your lings are going to stream in. If he goes for early Hellion pressure, you're completely safe against it.
You have like 6 roaches
exactly.
in an instant.
Yep. When he gets there with those really fast 2 Hellions, if he goes for the reactor Hellion really quickly, like the gas before barracks kind of thing, you actually won't have your roaches out quite yet, but you'll have a queen to wall off the ramp. It's a little dicey of a situation, but you are able to get the roaches out in time before losing too much.
Okay.
And really the worst builds I've come into are the ones where they bunker up on one base and just do the really aggressive Banshee play because you have obviously nothing that can attack the air. And it's almost a build order loss against those types of plays, but not quite. Like sometimes you're able to break in, kill the mineral line, and then Evo chamber it up and just defend with anti-air.
Lose all your roaches to a single Banshee. It kind of sucks, but at least you can sometimes do enough damage.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like I did go for pool before gas. You don't need your really early speed.
And I noticed he did not actually wall off. He is walling off his mineral line right now. And now sending an SCV to start walling off.
Yeah, I think this is to help him defend against any kind of 6 or 7 pool.
Okay.
He'd be able to get those Marines out and defend with the SCVs a bit earlier. But he will definitely complete that wall in. You can't not wall in against Zerg. It's just too risky. And I am going to scout in. I see that he has the refinery, so immediately I'm thinking, well, he's probably going to go for a couple Hellions, nothing too crazy.
Okay, one interesting thing here is you actually steal the gas. Wouldn't you want him to get the gas real fast so he could tech up, so when your bus comes, he just has nothing?
That's an interesting point, and it's true to an extent, but what I don't want is him to get Banshees.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if anything I can do to delay Banshees, the better. So I always try to steal the Terran gas. Some people will cancel it, some won't. I decided not to cancel and just let it stay there because I figured he would probably move into factory play and he wouldn't have that many Marines to take it down anyway. But yeah, just going to move out with these 4 lings, maybe send one up the ramp, see what kind of defenses he has up there, and then probably pull back. Hatchery is on the way, so it's pretty much a standard 14-14 expand. I think I did get the pool first.
And you see the command center, so you're probably happy right now, right?
yeah, I see that command center, so I'm thinking, okay, good. He's not going to play super defensive with tanks. He's not going to go for really fast Banshees. He's just going to try to defend and move into 2-base play. So, that kind of build is even more susceptible to my type of attack. What I've actually could have gone for probably is a 1-base Baneling play. And it would have come down to his Hellion micro, but I don't want to take any chances when I'm playing against BratOK.
Roaches are,
yeah,
are just so much bulkier that you can afford to make tiny little mistakes, maybe a bit more.
Definitely. And one thing I want to pay very close attention to in this game is looking at my base. You really want to get that 1-base saturation. You notice a lot of players move their drones down to their expansion. When you're playing against a player that's going Hellions, you don't really need to move drones down to your expo. And especially with this type of build where I'm not really doing macro-style play, there's no real reason to move drones and waste that mining time, right? I have full 1-base saturation.
It won't really bring anything.
Exactly. It's not going to benefit me too much. So I got both the queens out to keep spitting, the full 1-base saturation. As soon as the roach warren's done, I'm going to produce as many roaches as I can. So it looks like right now I'm producing 4, because that's all I can afford. But I'll use up all my gas when I can.
So I noticed that you always stop at 19 harvesters. Is
Yes.
that like a definite number, and it's in
Absolutely.
the build, you go 19 harvesters and then only roaches?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You get the reason for 19 is you get 3 mining gas, and you have 2 mining per patch at your main, so it's a total of 16 mining, and then 3 mining gas. And then when I have the amount of gas I feel is enough to support the amount of roaches I need, I'll actually pull guys off and start mining at my expansion. So as I mentioned, he has these bunch of Hellions, not able to do anything because I have those 4 roaches. And notice I don't want to show him too many of my roaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I'll
because
show
it's
those.
going to give it away.
Yeah, like he has those 6 Hellions. If he wants to try to be really greedy and aggressive and run on down into my base, then I'll reveal them a little later. But ideally, I just want to show.
And then revealing them actually picks off like 6 Hellions, which is great.
Exactly. So anytime you can kind of trick your opponent into thinking you're doing something else, it's very beneficial for this type of play. So the roaches are all out now. I'm going to lead with those 4 roaches so that if his Hellions are waiting for me, that's all he sees. He isn't able to put up like 4 bunkers right away, because the last thing I want is him to bunker up there. So yeah, going to move out.
He tries to bunker down here, and that fails completely.
Yeah, he's just trying to get his expansion up, but it's way too late.
And then there's nothing up here except Hellions that just won't do anything against roaches. You bust through, and that is pretty much it.
No, like this is a completely unexpected attack. He would need bunkers to hold this, absolutely, but he played a little greedy, didn't go for any bunkers.
I feel like even 1 bunker is not enough. I mean, you have 12 roaches right now. When you come in there, that is just gonna like 3-shot a bunker.
Yeah, like a lot of players will have a tank by this point. They will have a bunker. It won't be quite as, I don't want to say easy, but quite as a build order loss. But one of the biggest things you want to do is lead with the roaches. Like when you're trying to break through that supply depot at the top of the ramp, you don't want to use your lings, because if he has 6 Hellions at the top of the ramp and he's shooting down,
all die.
yeah, your lings are all going to die before you even get in, and you need those lings to do a lot of damage to the mineral line, because they kind of counteract the SCVs.
Yeah. Like
if he has Marines and Marauders and you have roaches, it'll maybe kind of balance out, but if he brings the SCVs, he can hold it easy. If you got those Zerglings attacking, it balances the equation for sure. And it's not the hardest build to execute. You just got to keep streaming lings. One thing you kind of want to do is rally your hatcheries onto your roaches themselves so that they get there right away. But once you're actually inside his base, you want to switch to rallying inside of his base rather than onto the roaches.
Okay.
Because if one of the roaches dies, and
it'll just
stop.
Yeah.
They'll just be chilling in your base. And I'll tell you what, there's probably been about 20, 30 games I've lost because I've left my Zerglings in my base because of a messed up rally point. So it happens to the best of us. Don't get discouraged if you lose some games because of poor mechanics, because the more you practice this style of play, the better you get at it, and the more games you'll win.
All right, so, this was obviously like a best-case scenario that could happen. You said the worst case was probably a Banshee.
I wouldn't say it's the worst case. It's the case that you'll lose outright most often. Because if you're not able to get into his base, he has a Banshee at the top of the ramp and he's able to fully repair, and you can't get in, then you're screwed. Like you didn't do any damage, he's going to be ahead, and he's going to have the chance to pressure you back with Banshees. So that's just a terrible situation to be in. One of the other bad situations is you get there with all your roaches and lings, and then boom, you get hit with a tank shell. That's probably the worst feeling in the world.
But you should probably send a ling in first just to make sure that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. Usually you want to send the ling up first, or because you're sending 3 or 4 roaches early, you want to send maybe one of those up the ramp first. But yeah, like even if that happens, though, you're not out of the game. That's what I really want to stress to people. Like, yes, it is aggressive, but no, it is not cheese. You have two full bases, or sorry, you have one full base saturation. You have two queens. You can easily saturate that second base with like one round of drones, and you're almost on two base full saturation. You do 2 rounds of drones, and you can saturate some of the gas too. Like you're really not in that bad of an economic spot.
That's actually what I wanted to bring up in one of the games that I saw this morning. You actually went up the ramp, saw 2 tanks and 2 bunkers, which is complete overkill on that. And you just kept your entire force right across his natural expansion. You got your second base. You droned up like crazy. You actually ended up ahead in drones like really, really fast. And as soon as he moved that orbital command on the low ground, you just busted through, took out what you could. Obviously, you couldn't kill him because there was too much there. But what I loved about that is that with that trade, he was left with only tanks, which obviously he can't attack with.
You gotta have those Marines.
Yeah, you just took a third, a fourth, and was such in a great position. You just crushed him with macro after that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like to mention is if they overreact and produce too much defense, or even if they like cut some SCVs and stuff like that, you're not in a terrible spot. You have complete map control. They cannot be aggressive against you. Like if they're contained and stuck in their base, they can't even take their second base for a while because they want to feel like they're really safe before moving down that ramp.
Yeah, and if they do send a tank down there, it's their only tank, you're just gonna flood in.
Exactly. They have to be really, really careful when it comes to taking that second base, let alone a third base, which you're pretty safe to do to take those extra bases. And if he went for some sort of like one base all in with Marines and tanks and stuff, Roach Ling performs actually quite well. And if you just pull back to your base, it's going to take him a while to get there anyway. You'll be able to get another round or 2 of Zerglings in, just surround that army, go for the counterattack. Again, if you don't kill him, you're containing
You have your second base too, and he's probably going to be almost mined out at that point.
Yep, pretty much. So yeah, really, really strong style of play.
I can see it.
Starting to see it more often now. I was watching the IPL. I watched Lucky Zerg play some games, and he used the Roach Ling attacks quite a bit. So yeah, what I'd like to recommend everyone do is stop playing that macro style of Zerg, or at least stop saying it's the only style of playing, because I assure you it's not. Aggressive Zerg is making a comeback.
So I'm sure you love July.
I do love July. Like, it's really funny because the style I was playing, I was thinking like, oh, I'm such a cheesy guy. Like, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be trying to macro. And like, I was winning games a lot though, and it was my best style of play, so I kept doing it. And then like, I was watching pros play like Idra and Rhett, and they were just making 30,000 drones all game long, and I felt kind of bad about myself. And then I watched July Zerg do that Ling Baneling push against the Forge Fast expand, and I thought, aha, I'm not the only one.
And I actually like that we mentioned July, because his aggressive style is kind of more of a trigger. Like, he's gonna macro really, really hard until at one point he decides just, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And from the game I saw where the Terran was bunkered up, it kind of seemed like you could have scouted a bit earlier on the huge wall off and the huge turtle. But it wouldn't have mattered anyways, because you just produced that huge army that enabled you to just prevent his second base from going out at all. So it wasn't just a trigger. You came back and forth between macro and aggressiveness.
Yeah, that's true too. To play Zerg, you have to have those switching points. You know, you don't really want to be adding on units and drones. You want to kind of have those short timing attacks where you make all units, and then as soon as those units are out, you're switching over to drone production, and you're just trying to mess him up as much as possible, multitasking as much as you can to pull out that economic lead, do a little bit of damage, and really kind of constrict him to one path. You know, keep him stuck in his base, keep him from doing all that crazy drop Blue Flame Hellions and Banshee Harass and all that stuff. Keep him contained in his base and move into the macro game with an advantage.
Okay. Well, I think that will be it for today.
Okay,
so
well,
I thank you a lot for coming.
Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate it. If you're interested in coaching or replays, anything like that, you can check out www.tankstarcraft.com. Or if you just want to ask me questions and stuff like that, I have a Team Liquid account with some posts up. You can always send me messages, reply to one of the threads, and I'll try to answer your questions in the thread. Anything I can do to help you guys out, let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for your support, and thank you for watching.
And if you enjoy these videos and want to see more Tang, subscribe to me. That would be awesome. And we will definitely keep casting Tang games because I love them.